Do or do not? There is no tri-square. Hey y'all, I'm James Wright and welcome to my shop. When I first got started with hand tool woodworking, one channel kind of changed my life. It's worth the effort. And he created a grooving plane using only hand tools in a very quick method. And then suddenly there was a tool that could do things that a power tool just would have a hard time doing that fast. And it was kind of a mind-blowing moment for me. And I want to use this as a chance to actually say thank you to Worth the Effort. He has made tri-squares in the past and has several videos on making them. He made these three for my kids and they play with them and it's a good time. And so I figured I would actually make my own tri-square because other than my big framing square, I haven't actually made a square in the shop. And so I wanted to actually go through and make a tri-square today. This is out of cherry and white oak, and I'm really happy with how it came out. Also in this, you may notice that my channel, I don't have any sponsors. I am sponsored by you, the viewers, on Patreon, and then a few things that I sell, which number one, I'm now selling my card scrapers on my website. So if you want to help out the channel, you can do that, t-shirts and a few other things. And yeah, let's get into the project. First, I'll start off with this piece of cherry, and for this board, I don't really care how long it is on either of them. The post was about 6 inches long, and the beam is about 1 foot long. I'm just cutting it and marking it at about that length. Once I have that in place, then we can cut off this scrap that has a knot in it, and then cut it to length. And you can see I don't use a knife wall. I just mark a line, cut to the line, and I'm happy with that. Next thing we need to do is create a mortise for the beam to fit down into. Now to create exactly the right thickness, I'm going to lay the beam on there and then mark either side of it. This will allow me to bring in the mortise gauge and set the pins right into those marks. And this way I know it's precisely the same width. I'll often do this if I'm marking to a chisel so that I can set the chisel on there and mark out on the board what the width of the chisel is first. Then we can go about laying out our mark and how deep we want it to go in, and the cut begins. This is a rip saw, tenon saw, and I'll just start by the toe and slowly work the heel down in and follow along the line on my side of the board, just staying close to the inside of the line. I want to make this right off the saw, I don't want to trim it up, but after following my side of the line, I can flip the board over and then continue the cut following down the line again. Now that the other side of the line is now on my side of the board, it's much easier to follow. And then cut all the way down to depth. Make sure that you're not going past your line. Oops. And you're ready to start cleaning it out. I'll bring in the chisel. I'll stay away from my line, chop down in a little ways, stand the board up, and then chop down into the end grain to pop off the board. Often I'll do this in the vise, but in this case I just ended up doing it without holding it in place. 6 of one, half dozen of another. But I'll go about halfway down from one side and then work my way back towards the line until I get dead in, then come in from the other side and clean it out. And then right before it's done, I'm just going to run right along that line and make sure that it's nice and clean and flat all the way across the inside of the mortise. The next thing I need to do is I have this piece of 1/4 inch white oak left over from another project, but I want to bring it down to something about 2 inches wide by about 1 foot long of what it is total. So I'll mark out with a marking gauge line and then put it in the vise and cut right along the line. I'm going to stay a little ways away from the line so that I can plane it back down to it at the end. But this actually goes fairly quickly to just rip down the board. I could do it on a saw bench, but for something thin like this, I actually like to do it in the vise. It just holds a little bit better. There's less vibration, and it tends to work fairly well, at least for me. Once that's been done, then we can flatten it out and bring it down right to that marking gauge line. That way I know the two sides are relatively parallel. We'll be addressing them a little bit better in the future, but right now I just want to make sure that it's a smooth, flat edge. The first bit of decoration I'm going to do is cut off a chamfer on one end of this, and that will be the decorative end. I'm not going to be doing like an OG or anything like that. Then I can just clean it up with the shooting board, smooth it up, and I get a really nice 45-degree angle on there. I like using the speed square just to get a 45-degree angle, fast, easy, and I don't need a separate board for it. Then I'll chamfer all the ends to make sure that any frayed wood is not causing any problem or looking odd. And as it's wood by Wright, I love a chamfer on everything. Now on the other end of the board, I actually want to create a little bit of a stair step. I'll be talking about why at the end of the video. But basically I'm going to make lines at 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, and 3/4 inch. And then I'm going to cut down to the 1/2 inch line 1/3 of the way into the board, and then I'll cut down to the 1/4 inch line 2/3 of the way in the board, or 1/3 of the way from the other end. And then that will allow me to cut down along those lines and create the stair step. This will create a 1/4 inch notch, a 1/2 inch notch, and a 3/4 inch notch away from the post on the tri-square. Makes it so you can kind of use it as a marking gauge, and I'll show you what I'm talking about towards the end of the video. Then now that that's all done, we can glue this up together just using a little bit of Titebond 2, wiggle it down into place, and then before clamping the square down perfectly tight, I'm going to just test the inside with a square and make sure that it is square with a square to the square. Wow, that's kind of meta. A little bit of squeeze out, and so I'm going to clean that out with a chisel. As long as you're careful not to gar up the wood, this actually is kind of fun to just clean up all the glue out of there. Then I'll come in with a card scraper and scrape it all out, make sure that all the glue is out there, and I'll get a nice finish. And yes, that is my patented Wood by Wright card scraper. Now we're going to actually test it. I had this board made a while ago with square lines on there, and the outside of the beam was off, the inside of the beam was perfectly fine. So just like squaring up the metal one like I did with a file, I'm going to do the same thing with a hand plane here, starting at the end that needs to be taken down and then make my way back to the other end, taking longer and longer shavings. That way I'm taking off more material at the other end. And then I can test one side, flip the square over, test the other side, and make sure that it is right on. And this one is, well, perfect. Now for the finish. Yes, this is a Wood by Wright show, so we are using boiled linseed oil and paste wax, the only finish I use on my hand tools. I love the way it brings out the look in this red oak and the white oak, and the cherry just explodes with that natural color and tone. Boiled linseed oil just is my happy place. Once I put on a few coats of that and it stops soaking in, I'll put in a paste wax finish, and it is basically done, ready for use, and ready to go. I'm really happy with how this came out. 30 minutes, maybe about 40 minutes worth of work, and I have a tool that will last me the rest of my life. I can keep it, maintain it. If I break it, I'll make another one. So there you have it, a tri-square. And wood moves over time, and there's a little bit of chance that it's going, well, it's going to go out of square a little bit, but you can always adjust the outside and plane it down just as I showed you in that. Also, these steps on the back are so that you can put a marking knife on there and automatically have basically a marking gauge at distances of a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, and 3/4 inch all the way along here. Just one more easy, quick, handy tool to have in the shop. And I really like how it came out. I'm looking forward to using it. The only problem is it's not magnetic, so it doesn't hold with my other ones. Maybe I'll fix that in a future video. But I do want to say thank you to Worth the Effort. If you want to see his channel, look down below. He has been helping me and many others with hand tools and woodworking in general for a long time. And so I want to give a huge shout out to you. Man, you have helped me more than you know. Also, if you would like to help out this channel, you can buy card scrapers and puzzles and other swag on my shop now. I'll leave a link to that down below. And that's about it. I do want to say thank you to the patrons on Patreon. You guys are the reason why I can keep doing this today. Your support is the reason why Wood by Wright is here. Also, if you want to like, subscribe, and share, that really does help out the video, and I do want to thank you for that. That's about it for today. Until next time, have a wonderful day.